want to welcome once again to another episode of Survive to Thrive TV. I'm very excited today to have next to me one of the guys who I believe is probably one of the most influential people, not only in the country but in the world. Kevin Mullens here. We're going to get a chance to have Kevin share with us some thoughts, but I got to tell you something. For me to have the opportunity to bring you this type of quality and value, not only in content but in personalities, really is what I've been dreaming about for a long time. And I hope that you grab a hold of these episodes and share them with folks, so that way you can make your own personal impact, your own personal influence in your own circle of contacts and people that you know that I probably will never be able to reach to, but you will. And today's episode is no different. I hope that you've got your ears ready. I hope you've got your pens ready to take good notes. Yeah. In fact, as I was sitting here waiting for Kevin to come off his speaking engagement here, we're actually in the Bronx, New York. Yeah. Right? So, we're in the Bronx.
We're in the Bronx, man.
We're in the Bronx.
Yeah, you gotta say it tough. We're in the Bronx.
Right? So, and I'm sitting here waiting for him to wrap up. He said some powerful stuff that I want you to elaborate a little bit, but you said shouters are not learners, and learners are not shouters. And you said broke people don't take people who don't take notes, are broke.
It's true. Right? I think note takers are money makers.
Right. So this is the kind of quality stuff we're going to get into over these next 10 minutes or so. So guys, help me welcome Kevin Mullens. Is well known. He's an author, 4-time author of some great books that are faith-based, self-development, personal development. For anyone really, but he's a successful entrepreneur in his own right. He's a 7-figure earner, and so we're listening to a 7-figure earner. You don't get a chance to do that too often in his own entrepreneurial effort. He's a very well sought after pastor and speaker. He's a leader of champions, and he's currently right now in the works of producing a very a movie that's being reviewed very, very well, and he'll get into all that if he chooses to in a little bit. But we've got high power here today on the show, and the show is all about surviving to striving and then taking it to the next level. And here's a guy who personifies that. So let me help guys introduce you to the one, the only, Kevin Mullens. There's tons of people that know you, and I'm sure there's tons of people that don't know you.
Yeah.
So I like to start my episodes with a little bit of history so people get up to speed on who you are.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on the call. I never take it lightly. I've always said that if someone gives you a meeting, you should treat it with the utmost respect. People's time is very valuable, and so I want to honor your time and say thank you for having me, Jay. And recently, by the way, got a chance to sort of proofread one of your upcoming books, and I was blown away. I think I might have been one of the first ones to write back, and I don't do that a lot, but it spoke to my spirit. It's something I think will definitely bring an added arsenal to the entrepreneurs in the marketplace, really trying to figure this thing out called life and success. Guys, I'm Kevin Mullens. I hail from a small town south of Tallahassee, Florida, a little town called Crawfordville, Florida. Most people, if I said that, would never know who it is. I always joke. I always say that I'm from the Redneck Riviera. Really, it's just good people, man. It's the type of town where you could, ask someone to feed your dog if you're out of town, or pick up your mail, maybe. The reason I share that with you is there's incredibly great parts that come, from the geography in which you were raised, and sometimes there can be hesitation and restriction that also comes with maybe the forces of community or education or the lack thereof. I live in one of those small towns where I think it's almost inescapable that at some point in life you're settling to do one of 2 or 3 things. State work is nearby, near a big town. If you stay in my town, you're generally sort of in construction, or maybe you're shucking oysters, working out on a shrimp boat. And I share that with the listeners because I lived in a home with mom and dad who were faith-driven. When I tell you they kept us in church, man, I think going to church was a lot like Disney World. But I had the greatest mom and dad in the world, and they never taught me to be anything other than a dreamer. Even though they didn't necessarily have all the tools to teach me maybe how to become, a network marketer or an author or a movie producer, yet there was something about their life that said, Kevin, you can do whatever you want to do. So living in that small town, I realized pretty quick I love sports, but I didn't love school. And I want the listeners to understand there's a big difference between, being maybe great at school and getting degrees and learning. I've always been a passionate learner. I've always understood that information is the difference in seasons. I've always been highly attracted to people that have success. I think that's one of the detriments to who we are sometimes in life, is that we're constantly willing to go to a conference or read a book, but we fail to sometimes recognize that when we can partner and associate ourselves with people that's maybe conquered some mountains that we've never conquered, maybe they have a lifestyle that we want. You can learn more from that in a day than you can maybe 50 years of trying to experience it on your own. And so I figured out early on, man, that me and school didn't get along so well. So I sort of dropped out of school. I regret that, but it just wasn't something that fit well with me. And yet, the one thing that I knew early on is that if I was ever going to create any significant income or have any kind of money, I was going to have to own my own life. And so I've always said that right out of the gate as a child, I've always considered myself unemployable. I just knew from the get-go that there was an entrepreneur spirit in me. I've kind of always felt like that life was meant to be lived at the highest of levels, Jay. And so I'll say that to the listening audience because I want you to understand that it didn't mean life wasn't tough or life wasn't hard. It didn't mean that I figured it out quick. It just means that although I might have been working, my dad was a plumbing contractor, I became a plumbing contractor. The best thing that ever happened to me, Jay, was the recession hit in about 2007. And it collapsed the world that I lived in, and what used to be a producing factor in my life from an income standpoint seemed to just sort of like get up and move away. And we didn't know what to do about it. And yet in the middle of all that, that's how I kind of ended up becoming an entrepreneur in network marketing and among other different types of business ideas and entities, is I knew that I would have to figure out a way to understand that there's a paradigm shift happening on a consistent basis in this world of ever-flowing ebbs and changes. And my willingness to change, my willingness to learn, my willingness to risk safety for things that I might have been uncomfortable with, I think has landed me here today, which is, I don't know that I still got it going on, but the Lord's allowed us to make millions of dollars at what we do, has allowed us to pursue a lot of things in life that probably would have been off limits to a kid like me from Wakulla County. But thank God there was a dream inside of me that was bigger than the circumstances, and through learning, through mentorship, through maybe just doing life wrong long enough to figure it out, we land here today, and it's an honor to be with you, Jay.
Well, I appreciate that because that's really in line with the message of the program here. Taking someone that is struggling, trying to figure things out, all of a sudden that light bulb switch turns on, and then you start to realize there's something better for me. So what I wanted to ask you, if you could share with the viewers, at what point did you find, I mean, you kind of mentioned that a little bit, but at what point, what was that moment that you decide, there's got to be something better out there? And what did you do about the thought? Sometimes people have the thought, they have the inclination, but they lack the action, right?
Yes, sir.
There had to be a certain amount of action that you took in order to take that inclination that, hey, there's got to be something better in me. I'm a better person in this. When did that happen? What action did you take right away?
It's a great question, and I think, coming from a faith background, I think sometimes one of the problems with people of faith is that we oftentimes think faith is void of action. And the realistic approach to faith is that faith is measured in action. The fact that you're actually doing something says that you have faith. Faith and action are inseparable. And so I think it's important to understand that faith without works is dead. And so I always teach that, good thoughts come and go. Like I meet people all the time that say, man, I thought about that years ago. It'll be like, well, I didn't do anything about it. So thoughts are a lot like currency. It just exchanges hands. It ends up in someone else's mind that has the tenacity and the boldness and the courage, possibly the resources to bring it to life. Execution is the most critical factor in business. It's the most critical. So for me, it was during that time, I think of like 2007 and 8, when I didn't know what to do. I was so conformed in my mind that the only businesses that maybe I was qualified to run was construction. I was always good with my hands. I was good at working, blue collar work. I grew up in a home where you had to learn how to do all that stuff. So in my mind, as my finances started going backwards, I thought, man, I got to work longer hours at the same job or figure out how to, build another business. thank God for me, somebody was crazy enough, tenacious enough to come bring some little thing that we today, of course, call network marketing or people helping people or whatever your name is for it. I call it grassroots. I think it's capitalism at a grassroots level, because I think it levels the playing field and gives anybody from any walk of life a fighting chance to go determine their future based on the actions they're willing to take. And so for me, I think part of it was desperation. Part of it was like that dog that you back in a corner, and sometimes you figure out how tough somebody is, when sort of, you're up against the ropes, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
I know that you're a fighter, yeah. And so I think the question I would ask people in perspective to my personal experiences, the word that comes to mind, and I think everybody listening to me has probably got a story that lines up with this word, and that is enough. When is enough enough? That I think it's maybe another word is even threshold. A threshold is that area of your life where you reach a point where you're unwilling to accept life the way it is any longer. And when you reach that threshold, it means that you're willing to pay the price. You've counted the consequences, and at the end of the day, you know that common and ordinary, mediocrity and average is no longer part of your life. That just being part of the status quo is no longer part of the formula for you. It's not written in your goals that you've got set for yourself. And so I think for me, I reached that threshold where I begin to be challenged in my mindset. I begin to think differently in so much that as a business owner, you bid a job, get paid, bid a job, get paid, or you hope to get paid anyway. Then all of a sudden it switched, and I began thinking about this thing I think some people in the world think's a myth until they realize how legitimate it is. And that was, I was about 37 years old the first time I heard the word residual income.
Wow.
I had no clue. Wow. I always joke, Jay, that as a plumbing contractor, sometimes I'll say that, imagine if I put a toilet in your house and every time you flushed it, I got a quarter. That'd be residual income. I never knew that there was a way to create an income stream based on leverage and based on certain jobs and opportunities that would allow you to get paid over and over and over for something you do one time, because that was never taught in any business school that I went to.
That's right.
Thank God for me. Someone sat down with me. I always joke that they stalked me. And I listened long enough, and I don't even know if I was impressed per se with the information, but I was at a place in my life, I was at that threshold where, Jay, I realized that I needed to change where I was heading in life, or I would be, 55, 60, 65, 70, and still not where I need to be in order to secure my family financially. And more importantly, I didn't want to be one of those people that died with my God dream inside of me and all of that unmet potential.
So the person who's watching, who's got something special, people watch our videos, and you meet people like this all the time. There's something inside of them that they're just dying to get out, something that they understand that I'm meant for more.
Yes.
What would you say to that person in terms of taking a leap of faith, a step of faith, right? Because sometimes what holds people back is their own internal belief systems. But what would you say to that person? Because I'm sure you struggle like I've struggled, and anyone who's ever done anything great struggles in the beginning, wondering, is this going to work out? Is this really meant for me? Should I give it a try? In fact, I was talking to a guy yesterday who gave me more reasons why he shouldn't do it than reasons why he should do it, right? And so we meet people like that all the time, and so do you. What would you say to that person to help them have that breakthrough that unless they try, nothing will happen? What would you say to that person who's watching you right now?
I think it's my calling in life, Jay, to help people discover and to develop all that God has deposited into your life. Because when we look at life from a spectator perspective, it's easy to see that common people every day, whether it's through a singing competition or athletic competition, seem to rise, and oftentimes we become very comfortable paying money to sit in the stands cheering on other grown people pursue their dreams. And somewhere in there we've become so complacent, at some point complacency ends up giving way to captivity. And I think that's where the average adult is, especially in America. I mean, we think about all the freedom that we have as far as being able to pursue an opportunity, We live in an age where, I don't care if you're talking about race, if you're talking about education, if you're talking about gender, nothing really holds water any longer, because you can create on the internet, you can video, you can vlog, you can blog, you can write a book, you can do network marketing, you can sell real estate, you can get a license. In other words, there is no limit to what a person can do in this place we call America. And yet, I find that people sabotage their journey through this thing we call identity crisis. It means that I struggle internally, and because your belief system is also the production template of what you earn in life, we sabotage our capacity to earn more or to have more because we've made a decision in our life that this is my allotment to just get by. You know, we have to say sometimes in the South, it'd be like, well, man, our family we just die with our boots on, which is a horrible idea, that we're just sort of meant to just coast through life and not have much. I want to say to the viewer, if you're that person that you've surrendered your destiny, if something inside of you has grown dark that once was a spark of divinity growing inside of you, pushing you to become more, to do more, to contribute more, eventually to earn more, I want to ask you to go back and begin to journal and possibly write some of those original dreams. I find that when we actually take a pencil or a pen and handwrite, not text, but when we actually physically begin to start journaling and start writing, I think it begins to conjure up good memories of what we begin to think at some point in our life we were capable of doing. We both know that there's no limitations. Yeah, maybe you can't dunk a basketball or hit a baseball 400 feet, but the world is an equal playing field as far as opportunity is. And so opportunity exists everywhere, and there's a unique difference in you that makes you special, makes you who you are. There's no need to compete with anybody else. God handpicked you for such a time as this, and He well-equipped you, chose you before the foundation of the earth and said, you know what? I love Jay. I'm going to make him an author. I'm going to make him successful. I'm going to make him a voice of freedom. I'm going to make him rise up and teach people to be mountain movers and to go out and live life without limitations. But you had to discover that. Phase 2, beyond journaling, I think, your dreams and getting back to really lifting the lid off of what you think you're called to do, is I think you really got to take some accountability and to do some deep research on who you're hanging around. Because it's impossible to move to the next season of your life oftentimes with the same people that think the same as the old you, live the same as the old you. Because in life you have partners or you have parasites. You know, there's a saying that I say oftentimes, which is that the company you keep determines what accompanies you. You see, in our world, Jay, because we're now on a new level, our appetite's changed, our conversation has changed. Conversation is how you invest in your future. Words are life and death. I know that for my future to be different, my conversation has to be different. But I also know that something about my friends reveal where I'm going in life. And I think sometimes it's hard to recapture that moment in your life where there was a spark of hope that you could maybe make a difference. You know, instead of sitting around waiting on someone else, we look to the people like the Rosa Parks and the Dr. Martin Luther Kings. We look to people like, Joan of Arc and Irena Sindler. We look to all of these people from different demographics and walks and ethnicities, and we champion them because they had the courage to do something that we know needed to be done. And yet, something inside of you knows that you're capable of doing the same exact thing. And so I think there has to be a voice yelling and screaming inside of you, trying to get out to say, part 1 is reconnecting with your dream. Part 2 is you got to get some people around you that support and encourage where you're heading in life, and people that will hold you accountable. There's nothing worse than starting, to either lose weight or to, get $10,000 in your savings account by the end of the year, or transition into, what you have to do to what you would love to do. Nothing's worse than to not have someone that won't call you on your junk sometimes.
That's right.
So find an accountability partner, a traveling companion that will hold you accountable, and ultimately seek out relationships with people that make you uncomfortable because they're living life at a level that seems to be too daunting, seems to be too impossible for someone like you or someone like me to do. And what you will realize is that there's an authenticity, I think, to people that are entrepreneurs that has a desire to reach back down. You can't pull, but to help someone with a lifting hand, provide a blueprint that if I can do it, you can do it as well.
You know, I can tell you, we could end the interview right here, and it is a Oscar winner.
Oh man, I'm loving this.
This is awesome. Now, you've got a project on the table right now. You've written books, national speaker, the whole deal. Now, here you are raising your bar up again, right, to reach even more people with a powerful message. You've got a movie coming out that you're the executive producer on, one of the co-executive producers on.
Yes, sir.
I've seen the trailer. It's awesome. I think it's going to rock the Hollywood world, the faith-based world. I think it's just going to help change the lives of millions of people. I really believe that. Yeah. But if you could share with the viewers a little bit about that, and we'll wrap it up.
Look, if you're on the internet, and most people are today, you could probably go to any social media of choice and just put in Canal Street movie, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, and you'd find us. If you went to canalstreetmovie.com, you'd be at our website. I will tell you that this is my second movie with Red Gorilla Productions, director and writer Ryan Lamar, who's a bright, shining star in this place we call Hollywood, that is with his team just creating some incredible content that needs to be seen. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that I love about your books, Jay, is that you're able to reach the heart of the marketplace without also being preachy. Mm-hmm. If you're a person of faith, sometimes you risk being so over the top with what it is that you're trying to shove down someone's throat that you fail to let people make that discovery for themselves.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about compromising on your beliefs. I'm talking about being tasteful enough to understand that if you're going to invade the marketplace with content, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, I realized that being involved in ministry, that just about every Christian film that was out there was made for Christians. Maybe you feel the same way I do, and I don't mean that they're bad movies. I just mean that none of my non-Christian or other religious, belief friends or colleagues was going to go see these films. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I want to be a part of something that is revolutionary. Our team believes that we're occupying space that maybe might not have even been occupied in Hollywood before, and that is to create believable content that deals with issues that are real in our today's society. Ours happens to deal with social injustice, and it does so through the lens of faith. So we're not afraid to talk about God. We're not afraid to talk about faith and our belief that churches and people of faith can be influencers in their communities. Yet at the same time, we don't want to tell such a squeaky clean, per se, traditional Christian film that it also isn't real. Mm-hmm. That when you look at it, you laugh because it won't speak to a person that's lived that life. So we went out and created some incredible content that deals with some of the race issues that are going on in Chicago and, quite frankly, the world. And today seems like to be the subject matter all over again. And yet, we don't want to just enrage people to leave the movie and be more mad. We're doing stuff through the lens of faith. So when you see our movie, I promise you that when it's done, you're not going to want to leave the theater. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to talk. And I think the last thing that I want to at least make notice of is that so many times also in Christian films, once again, it's not a bad thing, but you end up with a lot of actors no one knows. Mm-hmm. One of the great things about our film is that through our relationships, a guy by the name of Yancey, and through our team and through the actual script, in other words, the credibility of the content, man, we were able to land like world-class actors that wanted to be a part of this at minimal cost because we're an independent filmmaker, man. We don't have $50 million budgets, man. Here, yeah. So we're talking, Harry Lennox, man, Lance Reddick, Mekhi Phifer, Jamie Hector, Kevin Quinn, Woody McClain, Brashear Gray. The list goes on and on and on. And because there's so many powerful actors, Michael T. Williamson, that wanted to be a part of this, it immediately gave us credibility, not just in the faith-based world from a standpoint of what the movie offers, but also I think in the secular world, in the marketplace, it offered something that you don't have to be a Christian to go see this film. You can go see this film and realize there is a way to bring about unity. Unity doesn't mean that there's not diversity. Unity doesn't mean conformity. Unity means that we celebrate each other's differences. And I think that when we begin to recognize that we're all created in the image of God, that every person, regardless of race or religious difference or wherever you come from, they somewhere in them bear the image of God. They bear the image of God, meaning that there's literally a spark of divinity in all of us. I think it allows us to perceive life on a whole different scale, and that brings, I think, kindness and generosity. I think it brings about the type of content that you want your kids to see, that ultimately, I think that maybe has a chance to maybe change or at least add a dynamic to this thing, maybe that surrounds positive messaging. And so I want you guys to go see this. We're going to release this year in the third quarter. I don't have the actual release date, probably somewhere between September the 1st and November the 2nd, but it'll definitely be third quarter. CanalStreetMovie.com. Follow us, like what it is that we're doing. We want you to be part of our community. We're inviting you to come be part of the solution.
Yes.
Because we believe that there is a Canal Street in every town, which
Absolutely.
in our opinion is more of a, instead of just being a natural street, there's one in New York, there's one in New Orleans, there's one in Chicago, but I believe there's a Canal Street that exists in every city. And I believe it's a street where people of different diversities and different walks of life can come in a safe way, sit at the same table, express their concerns, and do so without prejudice. And I think the result of that conversation is positive change. When positive people come together and do positive things, positive change takes place. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring hope and healing to the world, and I want to do it through my actions. I want to model the behavior that I'm seeking others to do. And at the same time, whether it be our movies, whether it be our books, or whether it just be associating with giants like Mr. J, I want you to not only support what it is that Jay's doing, share his YouTube, share his books, but to grow a community around you that is a lot like a master mindset. It's just groups of people from different walks of life with different skill sets that look at the things that we know we need to take a hold of. Look to the things in our communities, in our churches, maybe in our country, and say, no longer will I wait on the government to get it done, or no longer will I wait on the local, wealthy people or who else to come do it. How about I become a person of change, and by living the life, instead of waiting change to happen to me, I'll become the type of person that change can happen through me.
I tell you guys, this man's star is, you might think it's rising. It's nowhere near to where that star is going to land. And I believe the impact you've already made on millions of people is just scratching the surface of the scratch. Okay? So I really believe that. And this man clearly is anointed. He's blessed. And he's been gifted to do great things. And he has proven his Father right. Guys, I want to ask you to like this video, share the video, subscribe to our channel right below. And we're going to continue to bring great content, great information that is going to help you go from just surviving to thriving. We'll catch you guys next time.